Hello, everybody. We are live. This is Andrea, and Andrea and I have been friends forever, and we have spoken about things of an esoteric nature for quite some time. And we began an organized religion, and we have our own journey, and we have our own story to tell. We went our separate ways after high school. And while I've worked with her brother in music in the entertainment industry here and there years ago, we also lived together back in the day with Robert Palmer's band members and have our own little, somewhat little infamous journey and trail. I continued on, and Andrea continued on in her own way, and she's out in Oregon, and I am coming from a horse farm in Lexington, Kentucky. So we are at once thought over a little bit of curve, but now maybe perhaps not so much. What an intro. So
Yeah.
so while we are coming to bear, because we have one person watching right now, let me not that that is bad, because we love that one person, and that one person hopefully will say something here shortly. I'm going to go to over here. Just say something, Andrea. Just say hi or whatever.
Hi. My journey in between high school and connecting back up with David
The
is
DT.
DT.
That's okay.
Is that I had dreams.
That's okay. Sorry, that was my sound. Go ahead.
I had 2 marriages and 2 divorces, and I have a 17.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. I have a 17-year-old son who's today signing up for the Marines. He's doing his ASVAB test, and tomorrow he will do the what is it, mental physical review that they do, blood tests, and they go through whatever. So he's at a hotel for the first time by himself. He was so excited. Mom, it's a 5-star hotel.
Right.
And so he's talked to me more in the last couple of days than he's talked to me in the last 6 months.
Right.
But
I'm just hooking everybody in. Keep on talking, and I'll be with you in a second. No, go ahead. Talk about what
my
you
journey.
Well, what did you used to know about what we consider to be Earth's history and stuff? What were the main things that we all accepted?
Oh my gosh, going through school and everything that they taught us, of course, I was born in the 60s after, I think it was after the moon landing. And so we were shown videos of men landing on the moon. We were shown videos of what the Earth looked like from space. We've been taught that the history all the way back to Roman times, forward to the medieval times, the 1500s, the 1800s, and there's this whole litany of history of wars and conquering, and like France conquered England, and then England conquered France, and that was the 15th and 17th centuries, and then England became the dominant country of the whole world and basically tried to take over the whole world. That's our history. And the United States, 200 and I can't remember how many years old, 220 something, and everything that they've ever taught us is very, I would say, dominant. I don't know how to explain that. Excuse me. My sister has a PhD that she earned, and her PhD was about the conquerors, and that our history is written by the winners, and it's not really true history. And I can't remember the title to her thesis when she wrote it, but she's not off at all. She the stuff that she researched and those things that she looked into, it's the conquerors that win that write the history, and that's not true history. We've been spoon-fed a lot of information.
Why?
To control the population, to say dumb us down.
Why?
The
I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, I know.
It's a good question.
We have a group of families that have dominated our world as far back as history is set, and it is everything that we do, say, everything we've watched, everything that we've read has been manipulated and spoon-fed. And so it's after watching this video that we're going to talk about,
that we're going to talk
about.
By the way, that whole gap of where you didn't hear my voice, that is the most you'll ever not hear me ramble or like conversationally bully or like commandeer the whole room. That'll be the longest you've ever heard. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, anyway,
hope you enjoyed that.
It's difficult for me after seeing this video to go back and try to remember everything that I've learned, because it's shaken me up. When I first watched this video,
yeah,
I've had a slight headache for several days since I first watched it, and I've now watched it 3 times.
Right.
And it's hard after learning all that information to go back to what I was taught in elementary school, junior high, high school, college, even. All that information is suspect, and so it's hard to look back at that and verbalize what we were taught, because this video makes more sense than anything I've ever read. And I'm a history buff. When I was in college, I loved history classes, and whenever I had an elective, I took history. Yeah. And so I was blown away by how
you're by the way, thank you so much, because talk about grabbing the right, grabbing, it sounds like it's not universal divine design, but thank you for being the equivalent spark of due diligence and passion and truth. And you talk about honor. You have such honor, and honestly, and this isn't braggadocious, everything I say happens. Like if I say something to somebody, I'm going to do this, you can definitely, it's like the old Beretta, you can take that to the bank. Date myself, because that was like an old actor that used to say that. He used to do a bank commercial. You can take that to the bank, was his moniker or his byline. Bottom line is this: if I say it, I'm going to do it, and because I'm not beholden, or I don't feel obligated or remanded or responsible, or that I owe anybody any particular allegiance or anything like that. So I'm a free agent, and that's 100% me all day. So I don't feel obliged or beholden, or like, I'm not one of those people that can't say no. I'm the fastest no in the world. You're going to get a no when I go no. When I say no, it's no. Now, Ron, not so much. Ron's like, I have to be careful. Like I kind of, through the years, we've been together 28 years. Through the years, like he's a what they say like a like we'd be on vacation and there'd be like these people trying to peddle stuff, and I mean like there'd be like cockroaches on him, like they'd be crawling on him, and he'd be so sweet and so passive and so receptive, and so well I'll look at it, he's looking at bracelets, and pretty soon he's covered with necklaces, and I'm like, what the heck? I just turned my back for a second. What do you've spent $1,500 on this crap? Yeah. So I have to kind of like I've over time. I say this with love, but I am not that guy. You don't like, I'm not a badass, like a hard ass. I don't mean to say that I'm mean or anything like that. I'm just very decisive. Like, I don't, my time is very well invested. And so when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And I said to you, you know, before September comes, because of back to school, because the kids, because of the China flu restrictions. I wonder if I get done for that if I say China flu. Anyway, probably. But anyways, because of all these restrictions, like nationally and really, well, not globally, but across the earth, you have to kind of change your whole vernacular now. You can't say global anymore, Andrea. You can't say global.
True.
It's not global because it's not a globe. I'm bearing the lead.
The realm. Our realm.
It's the dome main. It's the main dome at any time as it goes around. If you happen to be alive right now and you can hear this signal, you are under the main dome or in this domain of the entire realm. It's not everything, but it's the only thing where sunlight is causing reactions and the moon's having its little dance. It's the only place in this realm right now, currently, where there's an exchange where sentient beings can thrive. If you're not under this dome, for the most part, the rest is frozen because the sun ain't getting to it. Okay? So, I mean, we're talking about bearing the lead. I don't know. I told you in advance when we went to do this, I wouldn't really know how to do it. And I'm happy with that. And I was going to bury the lead just to be the dangler so that when people were watching, I'm going to read a couple things here that you put in your, this is Andrea and I, hello everybody. And please, if you're watching, go ahead and give us a little, hey, Vicky from East Tennessee, I see you. We are going to be discussing EWARs. Do we know who he is? I don't know if I haven't gone and looked. Like, I haven't tried to go, who's EWAR? The closest I came putting in EWAR was this gaming system. So, but that's because of like the Chrome browsers and the Google browsers. They're going to send you someplace else. But
yeah, we don't find these things.
Okay, so we're not going to hold you hostage for 5 hours, which is how long that this video presentation is, which is genius. But we are going to, hi, Ride Horses. We are going to, we're going to try to hit eloquently as we can and succinctly as we can. We're going to try to skip scrubber bar down these pivotal, most stark, captivating, provocative spikes in the information trail as we go. If you're watching now or will be watching at any time and you pick up this signal, Andrea and I have been thrust together through divine intervention or collaboration. We have emptied ourselves completely of everything that we thought that we held near and dear, if you want to call it like that, or things that we would have clung to out of fear, or anything else that we had prejudiced ourselves or that we weren't open to receive because we were afraid of then who would we be in this new understanding. We decided not to care about any of that. And in so doing, we became happy recipients of the pressing influence of the light, which led us to here. Andrea, was that well said or what?
All in one breath.
I did. I only breathed because I needed a sip of coffee, by the way.
There you go.
For coffee, there wouldn't be any silence.
Well, when I looked at this, I approached it with the attitude of, because you know, again, I told you this before. The first hour of this video I had seen about 6 months ago and had gone, oh my gosh, these people are crazy. They're digging up anything. And I watched it again with the other hours, and it all ties together. It all makes sense. But when I
Hi,
started
Debbie. Hi, Donald. Hi, Cindy. Go ahead.
when I started watching it, it
Everybody
was,
come in.
I
Go ahead.
have to throw away all of my preconceived ideas and notions and everything, and just open up
Yeah.
and just listen to the presentation, listen to what's being presented. And like we talked about before, we had to watch it a couple times to see everything, because your brain is taking in so much information. And but by putting aside any prejudices and any ideas and any preconceived
If you're watching this, the best way to receive this material, by the way, we're not soliciting a point of view, and you can't donate to our cult because we're bi-coastal and we're flying this message through the air to all sentient beings that are capable of suspending any superstition or dogma or limitation through propaganda. By the way, turn off your main television sets to get this signal to come in, because you're going to need to maintain a steady vibration to hear and to have this resonate inside of you. And you're going to have your own aha moment when it hits you. And everybody's going to, you're going to have to, not only, I'm going to put this in the link, the 5-hour video presentation that we are going to be referring to, I will put in the link, I promise. And some of you,
worth every minute.
And we're watching it more than once. I mean, you're already through your second time. I have not. 3
parts of it 3 times.
We over time are being reset by a group of elites that live at any given time and hold all of the secret of this actual journey about what's happening here on the earth plane. And they're using their moneyed science technology to keep us all glued to this box that's telling a vision, using the channel of the box to program us, telling us a vision that is not anywhere near actual truth or actually the properties of what's going on here. This is really what's going on here. This whole earth is a cathode anode battery system that has a negative charge down. Back in the day, all cathedrals, all palaces, all huge buildings that have domes and spires and huge stained glass windows, there was no stained glass in those windows. Those were built using sacred knowing geometry, and they were conduits that gathered electrostatic magnetic charge energy right out of the air and thrust it down the metal beams that were inside of the limestone, inside of the indigenous marbles and things that they erected these huge cathedrals with, called cathoid/cathedrals. They were done to praise God, but not in the way that people extorted. It was to thank the whole universal being that is all of us, where everything is free and abundant, for the miracle of how it works. And it still works today, right now, everywhere. They energized the water. The big palaces had huge gardens and lavish fountains and things all the way around them in every country. And they were dug in a geometric design on purpose because it supercharged the water. They became living water. And that water grew crops like you would not believe, like on steroids. And it fed people for like 100, 200, 300, 400 miles. And then you'd see another cathedral or another palace. And those palaces weren't homes of the elite. They were power stations. I wanted to jump in like that because I think when you begin to talk about that, and this video will show you where they're located from the aerial view now, where the water was drained away on purpose. And by the way, the elite knew this, and they put stained glass in all of the cathedrals. And when you put glass inside of these sacred geometric designed steel casement windows that were made with inside of arches under
Put
domes,
together with lead.
put together with lead, and the red buildings in all of these cities on Earth of the red brick used iron. The iron was a storage for battery that collected all the energy, like our transforming stations now, where you have your big power stations, and then it goes down the line and goes to substations, and then it goes on transformers that are on telephone poles, and then the wire goes to your house. They didn't have any power poles or anything, and back in the World's Fairs and everything, they were totally lit up, and they had what, Andrea? What were the people standing on?
They were standing on or walking on.
Say
I guess
it.
they were standing. It was a moving concrete sidewalk.
They were moving, magnetic, free, never-ending energy source sidewalks that moved the people through the cities. We have evidence. We have numerous times been at the height of full abundance, and they try to do a reset. You hear Kamala Harris and clone Biden talking about, and all of the Pelosi and all of the demon rats and the Democrats talking about how they want to the big reset. Chuck Schumer, oh, if we can just take Georgia, we can finally take over the world. The big reset is at hand.
Yeah,
now,
our Chuck Schumer goes in.
We haven't even started to play the video yet.
Chuck Schumer goes in the middle of the night at 1 or 3 o'clock in the morning to try to pass a bill that basically takes the rights away from the citizens to audit their elections. Schumer,
right? So, they and everybody. Let's get to the why, and then we're going to start showing some of these provocative images, and then we're going to I'm going to scrub over our head, and I don't know what we're going to see. Without a video, our last videos are like 2 hours long. I know you've got places to go, and also. Anyways, just talking about what I'm not going to do is taking up more time. So let me get to
just go.
So, God, I get so excited, which is better than not being.
It is exciting. It is exciting.
When you get this, you totally are going to, like, you guys have been watching me for some time as DT, another network, and you got hip to me there, and then you bought my book, and then some of you had consultations with me, and you know how I feel, and you know that I live in abundance, and I understand all the universal principles, and I suspend all kinds of disparaging thought on purpose and doubt, and I put in affirmative notions all day long, and I'm always available for inspired ideas, and ideas come from everywhere, and I have the energy and the strength and the wherefore and the state of mind to bring them to bear, and bang, yin and yang meets, and bam, success and abundance comes in money, it comes in health, it comes in relationships, it comes in great freedoms, and that's how we're all supposed to be. So the only reason that this information came to me was because I was already on the train. I was already on talk about train. We'll talk about trains later. I was already on the train, and you have to already be in it. Don't just my mind's blown. This will free you like nothing other, because the whole reason that they've been doing this and saying that we're on a round globe spinning at 1,000 miles per hour, going around the sun at 56,000 miles per hour, and that sun going 500,000 miles per hour around a galaxy that's going 1,000,000 miles per hour down into deep space, that anything at any time could blow us completely apart. And there's horror stories of solar flares and comets and asteroids and wars, and we're all chasing our tail, and we don't know. We've subverted our breathing even when we consider where we don't know where we're not. And yet, the whole time we're stationary, and the only thing that's moving are the stars for the zodiac changes inside the dome, the cathode and the anoid, which is our sun and moon, and then deep underneath this is a ring of molten. There is a core that's solid, and then it's not round. And then there's a molten ring around that, and it's in a perpetual motion that's doing a magnetic pull between the outer forces under the dome and that, and we're in the middle of that. The whole thing is being is a dance of like such astounding proportions that they don't want you to know, because they don't want you to understand how you're connected to it. And that
Geometric measurements.
and that what you think has an energy charge, and the better you think, and the more that you take advantage and activate all of your mind on purpose, you rev up, you're like, start your factory, you pour gasoline on the spark plug that's up here, you instantly have a new connection when you understand where you actually are. And people go, well, what does it matter if you're round or flat? It's so big, you can't even, your whole lifetime, you can't go everywhere anyway. So what the hell does it matter? I mean, it does matter. And they knew that it mattered, that you'd be chasing your tail. But more importantly, since then, they've been doing this short circuit, erase, cancel all. Look at what just happened. They're tearing down the statues. They're canceling free speech. They're stopping the truth from getting out. They're supplanting, they're telling their vision of a program thing through a channel, and they're canceling, and they're coming after you allegedly. Now they want to inject you with an elixir so they can shut down your divine spark, so you no longer will ever be able to think again. So that all goes hand in hand. It sounds like I just went off to a completely different place. No, they do this every 160 years. About, they cancel it all down, they exterminate most of the population, and then they already have subdivided a certain group of women, and they born orphans, and then they use the orphan trains to repopulate all the cities. We have pictures in all American city, all world cities in 1860 that were completely solid mud, and yet huge crystal cathedrals and still the most gorgeous palaces in the world are standing right in the middle of the mud. So if in the 1800s, most of the population was digging back out, trying to get back up to this understanding where we are, and we're telling you again, don't let them do it this time. We're going to be awake. We're trying to tell you it all goes hand in hand. And we're going to tell you where that dome is, how it moves, what happens behind it, and what happens in front of it, and how much more land there is as we go all the way around the the north vortex, the true Polaris pole. Because our north pole is not the true north. It's not true north. True north is in the center of all of the land masses, and our north magnetic pole has actually been on the move. You saw that, right? We have that. This is using their scientists. They at least let some of the truth out, how our North Pole is moving, because our North Pole moves around the whole main north vortex Polaris pole, true north. Okay, woo, down the rabbit hole we go.
And actually, none of that, when you hear it, none of that makes sense until you see it. And so,
hey, Natalie is up in Michigan. I was born in Michigan. Natalie, we are going to get up there and see you guys. We want to go to the Grand Hotel with you because we know that you are experts on the Grand Hotel. I adapted the themes from the movie Somewhere in Time, and we're still taking Somewhere in Time pre-COVID to Broadway. And Natalie was here with us, and we met her and Fran, and they are so amazing. We have an Airbnb. Hey, Natalie's going, hey. So, Natalie, we are all here in love for God everywhere, that's represented everywhere, dispensing the light. If you're picking up this signal now, fresh live, or you're going to do it in your own time, I will drop the link to this 5-hour video that is the history of everything. Beautifully done with provocative imagery and proof in the science. I'm going to hit play. I don't know what's going to happen here. Now, let's make sure that everybody can hear. I'm pretty sure that they can. It hasn't started yet.
There you go.
Can you hear that?
I can hear it.
Once you are awake, it is almost impossible to fall back to sleep again. Once you discover that the Earth is not a spinning globe, but a flat and stationary plane with a firmament above it, everything changes.
Everything.
The trusted voices and satanic scientific priests who once shaped our reality and understanding of the world are no longer reliable. Our first-hand experience of the Earth as a stationary realm is at odds with their fabricated narrative of space and spinning planets. The scarring of our land and the barbaric mining of Earth's once majestic giant trees is at odds with the history books and geological narrative. And the awake are left wondering, what on earth happened? If they've lied about the Earth, space, and the destruction of our flat realm, then how can we trust the official, mainstream historical narrative? The historical narrative, like the heliocentric model, does not make sense. It doesn't add up. And all it takes is a closer examination, and their lies, which have governed our understanding of history and the world since our birth, begin to fall apart. Let's stir the mind with a few contemplations. We are told that the first true power tool was invented in 1895, when a German company combined an electric motor with a manual drill. The drill weighed 16.5 pounds and required multiple operators.
I just want to stop it right there. I just want to stop it right there because, I mean, so that you guys don't leave us or don't think that we're just going to be watching this 5-hour thing in duration. We're not. I'm just going to let it like provoke us, and then who knows what's going to happen. But this drill was the first drill anywhere on Earth, and it was from a myriad of companies that got together like anything else. But at this time, when it 3 years before or decades before it was even patented, we already had standing palaces and cathedrals rising up in all of the world's cities with the most crude people with their horse and their arthritic back and their like inbred children, who knows, and poverty, disease, and they only lived to like 38 and they could barely drag their buckets into past these cathedrals. Well, remember that civilization advances, so we've always been told that we look back to the past and we go, wow, those were the dark ages. We've really advanced since then. Look at us now. Not so much. As we now find out, we are much more advanced in the past, and they keep trying to stop it before we find out about it and find out where we're located, and that's where we are again. And this drill seems irrelevant, but it is the key linchpin in these cathedrals that it was just created, and yet look at the molded, welded, arced metals and the fine quarry granites and heavy marbles that are rising up in all these cities where everything is mud and shanty towns. Okay, so did you want to say something right there?
Just that the beautiful buildings and the artistry of the carving of stone was done manually. Really?
Yeah.
You look at it and it's perfection. So yeah. It doesn't fit.
We didn't even have scaffolding and knowledge in the present alive populations at the time in the 1860s. They literally were, all of a sudden there was this young generation of factory workers all over the world. You can go and see these videos. Children were working adult machines. They could barely reach all the levers, and the whistle would blow, and they'd all pour out in New York City, in London, in Paris, in Russia. There were no more adults. They'd all been exterminated. And
there were some.
Look at all of the Look at all of the look at all of the orphan stories, from Little Orphan Annie to Les Miserables to Huck Finn's, Oliver Twist, Green Gables. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And it was all during this exact time, the extorted story of orphans, and that the orphans were going to sit in this contrast and then make their way and become a success. It was like, no, really, the true story is there were only orphans left, and they grew up over the course of 30 years, dug out, and that next generation forgot anything else because The Rockefellers soon came into play and were the only creators of all educational books that were allowed to be sent and purchased to school systems from K through 12 and 12 through all university levels. Only Rockefeller Corporation was the only vetted and approved purchaser or vendor of all educational things, because they had created the programmed version, canceling out, of course, on purpose, what really just took place.
And if you think about it, with these kids that were
It's
working
true.
in these factories, they were not educated. They
No.
worked in factories all their lives.
They'd never been to
They
school.
didn't have an education. It was their children that ended up being educated. And so you have parents that literally don't have an education, and then the children who are orchestrated into these, you know, created facilities by the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds.
Mm-hmm. And every morning now, I used to watch Hollywood Beach, Florida, during this whole COVID time to see when people were going to take their masks off, being that it was a free state under DeSantis. And so that used to be my thing when I was doing the other show and I was doing other things before this. I was actually just chilling out with coffee at the beginning of the day. You know what I'm doing now? I'm sourcing on YouTube all of the 1860 to basically there's not a lot of footage from 1860. The 1860 footage or still frame captures are really in this package. And on YouTube, we basically start around like 1902 in New York City and San Francisco on Market Street in 1904. And it's a stark thing, but you see all of the children coming out of the factories when the whistle blows. But you know what? They're all ecstatically so happy in the videos. Of course, they're seeing a box, and somebody just told them that it's capturing their image, and so they're looking at the box. But to watch them try to brag for the camera is heartbreaking and also just heartwarming at the same time. It's just a weird feeling. I feel like I'm here in this time. This is how I feel now. I feel like I'm here in this time, so overwhelmed, which if I thought about it right now, I would break down, because I feel like the haunt of all of them is going, please don't let us be forgotten again. And that's, I feel like,
yeah.
You know, I mean, I feel like I'm just at the leading edge going, don't worry, I got you. We're going to make sure that we're into this. And I'm not the only one. I mean, there's millions that are awakening. So let's all go.
It wasn't until 1957 that a company called Bosch began designing power tools in bulk that were both economical and powerful. So then how did our historical ancestors, a more primitive, underdeveloped people, design and build some of the structures we encounter? What about all the gigantic monolithic stones we encounter that have been cut with such precision? Ask yourself, could you repeat this today with the arsenal of equipment we have at our disposal? And what about the magnificent ancient stepwells of the East? Stepwells, we are told, were multi-storied wells built by our primitive ancestors as ways to preserve the water supply during droughts. But look at the intricacy and complexity of these structures. Look at the glory and the finesse. Look at the geometric precision. All dug out and crafted from using hand tools. Yeah, right.
Can you see my
What about the
cursor?
gigantic canal networks we find all over the world?
Can you see my
The
cursor?
Erie Canal in America was allegedly built between 1817 and 1825. There were no civil engineers in America at this time. The people responsible for planning construction were novices, we are told. The canal is 12 meters wide and 4 meters deep. The Erie Canal spans 363 miles. But this was not just a case of digging each day for the Irish immigrants and their oxen companions. They had to fell hundreds of trees as they passed through the virgin forest. They had to build complicated aqueducts and locks, and they had to pass through the Niagara Escarpment, an 80-foot-high wall of hard limestone. They had to use black powder to blast through this.
See, so what we're talking about here is that I know people are asking questions about like why isn't Chad on and blah 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 blah. Cindy, we'll get to the Three Gorges at another time. There's not enough time for it this time. Just to answer Dagmar, pertinent question: where'd all the mud come from? And the answer is that they have advanced technology that they can cause liquefaction. Have you ever been to the beach and stood on the beach and had the water, the tide come up? And all of a sudden, if you take your feet and pulse them back and forth, it starts to get really kind of like quicksand.
Sink.
And then if you keep on creating that vibration long enough, you start sinking down. And then it occurs to you, hell, I better stop this shit because I might get buried here and I'll never get out, and my legs will get stuck.
I'll drown.
That's what happened. Whole buildings, all cities around Earth in the 1800s, in 1840 to 1850, the biggest and the heaviest of them, we find even the Capitol in Washington, D.C. was 10 stories deeper, that they actually went and started digging. And when they did, the elite that were there when they came up made them cover it back up. And then they merely had to build these big, massive steps going up to now what they called, like, that was the original design. That was not the original design. And you'll find in New York that brownstones, the windows are half underground and there's stairs going down to that floor. And then there's all brownstones have stairs going up to what they consider the first floor. All of that actually was the second floor, and it happened everywhere. And I think that they use an advanced technology against humankind, and they created liquefaction on Earth.
Now, this happened in 2017 in different places. There's a couple of, like in Japan, and I can't remember what the other city was. It's Middle East, where an earthquake caused liquefaction, and I think Alaska as well. Buildings broke in half when half of the building went into liquefaction mud, and then cars were buried, and there was buildings that sunk like in the 1800s. So
and now bear in mind that the extorted notion of continental drift is over. And so earthquakes and plate tectonics in general is an extorted swindle, part of this extorted swindle narrative. It gets deep. The land masses are fixed. I will tell you that Lemuria and Atlantis sank. And we know that because the only true map, and get ready for heads to explode, and we will cover it here shortly, and we'll show you what we're talking about. It's actually at the whole end of the 5 hours, and I will be massive super scrubbing ahead here. I just wanted y'all to get it like an intro. So we found out that the only map was what, Andrea? Watch the water. Do you remember Trump and the military telling all of us patriots, watch the water? Remember Q? Watch the water. So finally, the parable at the end of this video is, I'm just going to jump ahead for spoiler alert. I'm going to bury the lead, that he tells him, look, grasshopper, look down into the reflection in the pond. And he goes, yes, I see myself. I see my soul. And he's like, no, you fool. Really look at the damn water. Look at the pond. And as he does, it's a full moon that night. And he looks back up, and it's a reverse mirror image. And he finally sees it. The moon, one, is under the dome. It's not way out far. Like the sun is here as well. It's not very far. The moon, we don't know exactly what it is, but we know it's not a rock. What it's made of is plasma, for the most part, is what we know. And at some point at the beginning of creation, it took an X-rayed snapshot of the land, the hard land continents down underneath it on flat Earth. And at that time, Lemuria, before it sank, was off between us and Japan. There was another landmass. But if you look at it, when you look at this video and you zoom all the way in, you're going to see every river going across to Africa on the moon. You're going to see every single canal, the Suez Canal, the Panama Canal. I mean, you're going to see where they would have been, that they used that land. You're going to see all this other. You're going to see Australia, New Zealand. You're going to see Russia. You're going to see exactly how the Great Lakes are there in North America. You're going to see the outline of Florida and Texas. Everything exactly as we know it right here, right? You're going to see that on the moon through the pond. And you'll see it on this video. I get so
he
excited.
identified each he identified each.
Oh yeah, no, he
identified
measures the
every-
miles and everything. Okay, so the coincidences, forget about it. You can't even debate this. Okay, because we have them down to like a half a mile, down to Boca Raton. It's on the moon. It's a mirror reflecting down exactly what we look like from above. And remember the Bible? Do you remember the Bible as so above, down below? Remember all the parables? Okay, so not only that, but then when you really, what we'll show you is when you really start looking at it, there's a whole other area of continents, a huge landmass, also representing that we don't know about down here on this flat plane. Okay, so here we go.
We are told, as dynamite had yet to be invented. The canal spans 363 miles and was constructed over an 8-year period. This means that on average, 1 mile was completed every 8 days. What a record, especially since those responsible were novices, and power tools and dynamite were yet to be invented.
Yeah,
I can tell you now, the so-called early settlers of the Americas did not build these canal systems.
But their ancestors did, and then the history was covered up, and they keep getting to a certain advancement. Then they shut it all down. We get to a certain advancement, and they shut it all down. And meanwhile, we'll show you this domain, or the main dome over the entire. We're about, what did you say, Andrew? We're about 4 times as large in general as what we have been told.
Yes.
And one, we're not round. And then of the continents, of the land masses and the water that we know of, that is all true. They all are here. Okay. But you don't have to go around to them. Okay. There's no Antarctica continent, and our Arctic is the shoreline. At any given time, the ice shoreline is about 60,000 miles around, and it just keeps moving. And we thaw out as the sun and the moon do the dance of God, really, for the sake of what is God in everybody. And we've been on the other side 17,000 years ago. We weren't inhabiting what we know of now as our land masses. We are over on the other side. And this side was completely under ice and frozen because it was so far away from the heating, life-giving source of the. And because of that, also, like I was telling Ron, as we go and we thaw out and we go to the next continent, as the ice thaws, there's structures that we built there that when the ice melts, that will rise up, and we'll dig that mud out. There will be stuff that was already there, and this has been going on for a long time. So we've lived everywhere. Did you put that together? Did you?
Well, because you know when
this won't be our first time around.
when the sun moves and everything melts on this side, then everything on this side freezes. And when it moves, that's the way it goes. And so you're going to move.
And we're going clockwise. And basically, if you look at EWAR's depiction in this, I think it's chapter 3 or hour 3, if you will. When he gets to that part, you can tell that the portion that's it takes about 200 years to really notice a climate change. By the way, let's get to that. Let's get to that climate change thing. That's all an extorted, swindled slush fund for grifters and the powered elite, so they can have their adrenochrome drugs and their sex with minors, and they can keep you in bondage and hostage. There is no climate change that man is creating. Man is not creating the climate change. This is the actual movement of the dome where life resides. It's a natural thing. Don't let anybody take away your civil liberties under the guise that you're harming the oceans and blah, blah, blah. By the way, the Antarctic Treaty says we can't go and fly and even visit too far into Antarctic since 1959 because of the penguins. Well, I don't recall us having to steer around rainforests when we take international flights, or when we can't fly over oceans because there might be like a problem with the whales. So that's all an extorted swindle notion. People don't think about it. They think, oh, well, the poor penguins, we love them. Well, we understand. It's like, no, you don't understand.
Spotted owl, hello.
Spotted owl. Yeah, here we go. I'll do a little bit more.
And what of the grand and magnificent castles scattered across our realm? Did you know that most were designed and constructed without plumbing systems and methods to heat rooms properly? The royal and the elites of the past were content without having the accessible necessities of survival just as long as they could live within the grand and the glorious, while the peasants, in their modest abodes, enjoyed warmth throughout the long dark winters? I don't think so. And of course, there is the impossibility of the Great Giza Pyramid Complex. The pyramids, we are told, were constructed somewhere around 2500 BC.
I just want to answer this question. So Dagmar says, where I live, my town is located at about 400 feet altitude above sea level. So what about South America or any country located way south of the globe? Would they not live below sea level? And no, that's it. You're conflicting two different notions because we've been so programmed about one that we keep dragging the false narrative of it, trying to make sense of the truth. And the truth is there is no globe, and that water has always been level. There is no other level of water anywhere. It's all level. The land itself rises and goes. There's glacial lakes that are way up higher than sea level, but they're contained by land around them, like Crater Lake in Oregon up in the mountains. And there's many mountain lakes, and there's many mountain rivers, and there's waterfalls, and they fall down, and eventually they all go back down to sea level. We're not going around a curve where somebody is getting something that isn't. It's all flat. That was an extorted notion. It's difficult to keep on tripping. You almost have to come up with new words because the old ones just don't suffice. Even when I'm talking, sometimes I go, "Oh, that'll be global." I'm like, "No, it can't be global. That'll be flat-like."
You can call them the global elite because they're the ones that have been perpetrating the lie, but we are not global. We have a realm that's under a dome.
A dome, which is our domain or our main dome. Look at when your heart stops beating and you flatline. Well, the flatline, it's very interesting. Or how about Fauci? I love this one. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Wow. Okay, well, we are at doing God's work at flattening this curve. The real curve. Here we go.
The Great Pyramid itself consists of 2.3 million blocks of limestone and granite, and its overall structure weighs 6 million tons. The largest granite stones weigh between 20 and 80 tons each. 20 tons is 20,000 kilograms. These blocks were carved from quarries with copper chisels and allegedly transported from 800 kilometers away.
Okay, so we got this. So let me just kind of like scrubber bar because I can see the visual. We want to talk about how there is these are so okay, Rubik's. We're gonna go. So that's the flat Earth model of where under the dome as it goes around. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna, for the sake of everybody. Is this where they're talking about the mud?
Yes.
I think they're talking about the architecture here. Let's kind of
give it a listen. Found. It is quiet. Too quiet.
This is the mud. They're showing
the population of
Yeah, let me go to the San Francisco. Good, Vicky. Thank you. I'm glad. We're trying to be coherent. This is a lot, and there's no way. Weren't you gonna do this, Andrea? You You have till midnight? No, you don't. Listen, I just want to give this story. So you remember how the West was won? Dun. Oh, there's gold in the hills. Everybody, gold rush. Come on from New York City. It's way out west. San Francisco. We have a still shot of San Francisco in 1860. Allegedly, there were 200 people that had finally gotten there. The very first picture that was taken, at that time, 25,000 people were there, and we see a city that's got cathedrals and it's got infrastructure, and it doesn't look like a city where that eventually 200,000 pretty quickly ended up being, but none of them knew how to build, and none of them brought any materials, and none of them had any schooling. These were the people, the wanderers, the discoverers, the pioneers that were, while they were resourceful, they didn't have what it took to put these systems together, and yet they arrived upon them like a city over the hill suddenly. Where the old extorted narrative was that they built it from the ground up. No, it was already there when they got there. So anyway.
Petersburg in the 1860s was, we are told, roughly 500,000 people, and yet there is not a soul in sight. Where is everybody?
It really is eerie to see these pictures with no one in them. I mean,
the long shadow of Alexander Column gives us a clue as to the time of the sun's journey above this region. Long shadows only occur during morning or evening. It must be morning, but it appears that no one has surfaced yet.
And all the roads are mud.
If we travel 400 miles across to Moscow, we see the same thing.
Look at the Kremlin.
Empty, quiet streets. In 1860, Moscow shared a similar population with St. Petersburg, roughly 500,000 citizens. But again, where is everybody? What about the rest of the world during this time period? Edinburgh, Scotland, 1840s.
There's not a soul.
Completely empty.
They didn't call everybody and say, stay indoors today. We're going to do a panoramic view of the city.
Copenhagen, Denmark, 1840s. Dresden, Germany,
All the boats
1860s.
We see in San Francisco, we see this actually was able to capture this wagon filled with hay and other things with the horse strapped to it. And for 1,000 feet in any direction, there's no human near that horse and that thing. There's just, and then it shows the rest of the city and all the streets are bare. And they showed the shadow again. It's like 3:30. What would be like 3:30 on the West Coast, and there's nobody.
Rio in Brazil, 1860s. Toronto, Canada, 1860s.
I'm hearing that thing too. Do you hear that?
Athens in Greece, 1860s.
Do I hear what?
There is a interference thing happening.
Okay. My heat pump is running. I have it's a fan. It's really quiet.
And then London, finally, people.
Okay, so we get it. Yeah, no, Natalie, I hear it too. I heard it the other day. And it's
Is it
like
loud?
it's
I can check my heat pump. Hold on.
no, it's not that. It's
Okay.
something.
Well, I know somebody else had a problem with this before, and
Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
Scott McKay had huge interference on his show, and somebody was hacking him to shut him up.
Oh,
So that's a possibility.
well, it's really irritating, and it really kind of happens when I talk, I think. Natalie goes, "It's okay. It only happens with sound." It's like, well, that's not good.
Let me check.
As long as we don't say anything, yeah.
Hold on.
And what about Paris? People, life.
I'm gonna see if I can do something here. I usually don't sit here and do this.
So is that sound still going?
Can you hear me right now?
I can hear you. Check. Sound check. Is the buzzing, ask Natalie, if the buzzing is still on, then I'll turn my heat pump back on because it gets hot in here.
Can you hear me, Andrea?
So we just need to talk. A lot of these pictures, you get used to seeing the pictures in history, and you get used to being told a narrative, and you just accept it. You go through history class, and your history teacher takes you through the encyclopedia and all the written history, and it's the this is the picture, and then they explain it to you what that picture is. It's frozen in time, that they took this picture, and you don't have any other reference. And like they said, at one point, it was, there's no other confirmation, and it's all what you've been told and what you've been shown. Even drawings from previous centuries, they're just drawings, and you either believe it or you don't. And that's the interesting part of this. You still working? If you're talking, I can't hear you. There you go. I heard a click.
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
But then there's this thing that happens. Just don't talk. I love her. It's coming through my computer.
Oh,
Like it's picking up. I don't know what it is. We're gonna move on.
maybe my batteries have gone dead.
Okay, this is really good. Let's get to this. So the buildings were built like way before this reset, and they were built on purpose, like we said, to be
People, life.
to be generating to capture free energy, because everybody had free energy.
The first photograph, we are told, was created in 1822. The art of photography relies on methods of juxtaposition, of comparison and contrast to deliver its message and sentiment. In these old photographs, we do not find the same deliberate techniques of juxtaposition that contemporary photographers craft into their art, but rather we find natural contrasts that are so important and central to navigating through our deceptive history. Contrast is a phenomenon, natural or artificial, in which meaning is generated and conveyed through the comparison of two opposing elements. When looking at 1860s Russia, there is an immediate contrast between the lack of population and the sheer size of these cities.
We're getting that. I know, guys. I have audio problems. Just I'll try to figure it out. Maybe I don't think I'm going to. We've done whole podcasts before, and I've had this, but when I go off the air and you and I are just talking, all of a sudden I know where it starts.
Huh.
It's something electromagnetic down here. My big speakers, and it goes when I talk, which would mean that it's my microphone on the computer itself. Can you hear me if I talk like that?
See, I don't hear it at all, but
can you hear me if I talk like that?
I can hear you. I don't know about anybody else.
Because if I talk lower, it doesn't do it as much. Okay. Maybe I'll stay down here.
Yeah.
Okay, just 1 second. Yeah. So anyways, this is the Arc de Triomphe, and it's actually steel inside of it in the form of an arch. And I need a whole new computer system. No, I just got it. Maybe that's a problem. Anyways, this is a magnet. It's a large magnet. And everywhere where you see architecture where they made an arched window, and all of the windows in cathedrals and in the big cities and all of the arches, and you'll see these big standalone arches in numerous places.
Train trestles, bridges.
They were all conductors for electricity for the down-charge, working off the natural negative charge that comes out of the earth. And then there were spires on top of all of the buildings back then, and in the top of the biggest spires were another cupola, and inside of that there was a mercury cylinder, and it was an engine, but it was a free perpetual motion engine that worked off because of the free energy. And they have all of this knowledge, and they could have been doing this the entire time without having any electricity bills or just you name it. Moving sidewalks, levitation, just free systems, living water, as opposed to spinning the false narrative that Flint water is all poisoned and this is happening and climate disaster and the oceans are warming. It's all bullshit. It's all meant to keep you, what I call scratching your watch or winding your butt. It's an old expression.
One of the things that I read, it was either in this video, and there's plenty of information, but it could have been somewhere else that I heard that the oceans take care of themselves, and the oceans clean themselves, and there's a process that water, it's healing, it takes care of itself. You don't have to heal the ocean. Yes, it would be great if we would stop littering and remove all the plastic that's gone in there. But what I saw was a documentary on building buildings with the plastic from the oceans, and I went, no, I don't think I'd want to live in plastic. But
right. So when they decide that we are getting to the tipping point of figuring it out, they have some kind of advanced technology sticks, if you will, rods that they trigger all their agents in all of the continents, and they shove them down into the soil, and they begin to do this liquefaction in expanded concentric circles, and eventually buildings start to collapse. It also interferes with humankind the way that you think. It drives people mad. It's just the most craziest thing in the world. Talk about like the opposite.
Heavy mass, such as buildings, infrastructure, and cars, to start sinking, topple over, or collapse. It can also affect dams and bridges. Turbidity currents can also form huge landslides that are impossible to stop. In the worst case scenario, entire cities may be destroyed. As you can see, liquefaction can move entire areas of land. The mud can rise dramatically and rapidly, and its destructive force is unstoppable. It is a well-documented phenomenon. The 1964 earthquake in Nagata, Japan, caused liquefaction. And we can see the effects very clearly in these photos. The same here with the 1964 Alaska earthquake.
Okay, so we get all of that. I'm going to scrubber bar this ahead. That's to answer Dagmar's thing. This is the interesting part about what I was talking about how they tried to then block like what you were seeing.
Windows partially below ground level. First floor entrances raised from the ground level. Steps leading down to entrances below ground level. We can find this in almost every major city across our realm, in both old photographs and when we walk in the streets today. And what does it tell us? That a society with access to modest construction tools and horse and car constructed their infrastructure by first spending countless amounts of hours and energy clearing land with a depth of over 3 meters to begin their construction. Building basement floors is incredibly hard work. Since the 20th century, large powered excavation machines, such as backhoes and front-end loaders, have reduced the time and manpower needed to dig a basement dramatically, as compared to digging by hand with a spade.
Brutal.
Perhaps you could say that our historical ancestors were just that dedicated to the architecture they built. And you could say that many of the sunken buildings we see are actually due to elevations and depressions in the natural landscape. The official narrative, which is always full of inconsistencies, perhaps would suffice if it was not for contemporary excavation. When we look at photographs such as this, it immediately dawns upon us that what we are seeing are windows and doors 2 to 3 meters below the ground surface.
Okay, we get that. So I'm going to let people source this on their own if they haven't already. So you can see, you guys. You can say something since you're not the one with the audio problems, Andrea.
Oh, okay. This is the U.S. and they're showing the structure and the things that he was saying is that why would the stuff below that was built in a different time match what was above? And when they dig it out, it matches. And you know, you've got 3 meters.
Look at the Capitol. Look at the cap.
Incredible.
There's whole columns and pillars that were
below ground,
part of the actual first floors that forever aren't part of our knowledge. They just let it be stay buried.
3 meters of mud and dirt, that everything sunk at the same time. And I don't know, you know, like you're saying that you know, it affected the human body and a lot of people.
Well, we're all vibration, you know?
Yeah. So the vibration liquefied probably the human body.
I don't know about liquefying, but it definitely. Have you ever been in an earthquake where when the ground starts moving, that you suddenly there is
I was 3. The ground, the ones in California, there's a couple of different kinds of earthquakes. One is a rolling earthquake, and the other one's a shaker. And the rolling ones, I think that's how things liquefy, because you know, if the ground is moving in such a viscous way and not shaking, the rolling is causing shaking. But you can see the difference between the 2 earthquakes, and that really is an amazing experience to be in an earthquake.
So after this happened, then they repopulate the areas with young children, and they have no workforce left. So they recolonize with foundlings. They were called foundlings. They were orphans, and they were processed in huge batches in factories, and then put to work. And they were parentless. They didn't have any parents at all by that point. There's some pictures of them. There were 889 orphanages in the United States in 1860. And there were
7 agencies that dealt with all those children in the United States.
There they are on the machines. They can, barely, they weren't made to run these machines. I mean, if you saw children being run across the United States in huge trains, this was really crazy. There was a place called Luna Park, and this mad scientist who had no credentials whatsoever, you could buy babies out of incubators. And nobody the population at this time had never seen a baby before. So it was a spectacle, like a sideshow.
Infant.
They had never seen infants before.
And these were all premature. These were tiny. These were all tiny babies.
Right.
And they said there was like 80,000 of them.
There they are now. There's Dr. Wackadoodle. Mm-hmm.
That's creepy.
We'll call him Fauci. Yeah, right.
But they were saying at the same time, the eugenics and the Aryan race, and this was the narrative.
3 to an oven, yeah.
Yeah. And the crazy people that are trying to stop,
like Gates and everybody else now. Our doctors now are just like, they
just they're told by the pharmaceutical companies.
So we covered that, and I mean, like, way over. By the way, rainbows are rainbows because they're reflecting off the dome. It's water particles revealing to you the shape of what we're under. Always found that to be cool. By the way, there is universal law that says that no one can do something against humankind or extort free will without first notifying them. You have to, out of universal law, notify somebody, and it's called the bear trap. Notification of bear trap. And this is what it is, and this is a law. You can't put a bear trap in a forest unless you post a sign near it that there's a bear trap and point to where it is under the leaves. And that's why they make movies like The Matrix and The Truman Show. They have to tell us exactly what they're doing, even though they go ahead and do it. They still have to tell us first. So it's not your imagination. Yes, those movies are displaying the actual truth of what's going on.
And over the summer, I
love that.
watched some of these movies, and I'm telling you, with this kind of knowledge and being woken and watching one of those movies again, I used to watch them all through growing up, becoming an adult, all the sci-fi, everything, Star Trek, Star Wars. You watch those and you go, oh my God. I mean, every movie I've watched this summer, I've gone, crap, look at that. They're telling us blatantly right out in the open. So yeah, they're telling you in advance where they want things to go. And I can't remember what movie it was, but they said something about the people that had never seen a tree, and they want to remove all the trees to remove the oxygen. To what's that agenda? I mean, every movie that they come out, and the apocalypse and the Walking Dead, and all the zombie movies and all that, they want to create this, and so they tell you in advance what they're doing. Really is,
like mad scientists.
yeah.
And the antennas we talked about they collected electromagnetic static charges right from the air, which aren't gone. The ability to harness free energy is still will never leave the Earth. It's still here. They just have hidden it. So.
Well, and there are pictures, and I don't know where you are in here, but there are pictures of them removing. There's one, I don't know if it's a drawing. I don't know if it's one of the earlier photos or if it's a drawing, but they're showing them removing one of these engines or batteries from one of the what do you call them, cupolas?
Yeah, no, I saw that. They were up on. They had their swindled story was it was a picture of them erecting it. It was actually them taking the celluloid mercury container out of them. All lighthouses weren't to protect and warn ships of the rocks. Lighthouses were actual batteries near the water that actually resonated the rest of the energy to that township. Okay? And all forts weren't to defend from warring factions. Those were geometric designed generators. They're designed in the shape of what, and they were always surrounded by moats, and moats were filled with water, and water was the energizing agent of the free energy. It's all extorted. There you go. I'm really pissed about my microphone. I just Google searched it. I'm trying to find out what's going on. I'm gonna let this play. I'm still trying to. I almost feel like I need to leave and come back because it's so irritating, and it's kind of hindering how I speak and what I say, and I don't like that. So
you're gonna play the
of these domed structures. When examining many of the interiors of these domes, we come to realize that they rely heavily on symmetrical ornamentation. This is achieved by indentation or cavities in the masonry. In the world of electromagnetism, a cavity resonator works through symmetry to produce oscillation or vibration of energetic particles. Symmetrical shapes force energetic particles, or ions, to vibrate in a constant manner. Is this why we see perfect symmetrical ornamentation within the ceiling of many domed structures? It no doubt sounds absurd, but the majority of these structures also feature a smaller type of cavity resonator, or what is more appropriately termed cavity magnetrons, that offer some clarity as to the real function of these structures. A cavity magnetron is a high-powered vacuum tube that generates microwaves using the interaction of a stream of ions with a magnetic field while in the cavity resonator. A magnetron operates through a hollowed, symmetrical vacuum. It emits powerful microwaves that can act as a source of free energy. If you break the symmetry or close the vacuum, it no longer functions. But can you see the resemblance? These structures were never intended to hold glass within them. The controllers added the stained glass to the rose windows to shut off the magnetron's function. They closed out instruments of free energy. And they are everywhere in these structures.
produces energy, which is incredible. And once you
Interestingly, if you look at the geometry of entire sections of the structures themselves,
Yeah, so you get that. Gosh, my speakers. I hate that popping stuff. Perfect if I don't talk.
I'll try.
This is good. I mean, I mentioned it, and now you get to narrate this. So,
Well, this is I believe one of the cathedrals. They turned it into a baptismal or something. Each one of these wells has been converted. They've put other things like statues. When they removed the engine, they put something else in there, kind of to distract. But when you really look at some of these pictures, it really is amazing to see something else was there before they removed and replaced it with something simple. There's one picture of a well, and it has like 4 holes in it, like there were braces or something holding something, and so they removed the parts that were the engine that allowed the electricity to flow, or it's electricity.
then it becomes very evident that they functioned in their entire.
I am going to do something radical and end this broadcast and restart it.
And see if that helps.
I am. So, you guys, if you're with us, we will be back.